Hello, after having played through the Natlan's Archon quest, I wanted to share some of my thoughts on it. Just like any series with multiple episodes in a season, there may be some ups and downs in the quality of the storytelling and the story itself. There will be some episodes that are bound to be better and some less so. It's to be expected, even though I naturally like the ups more than the downs in the storytelling. In order to talk about Natlan, I would like to use the previous regions as a comparison, so let me start from the beginning. I felt like the short Archon Quest prologue, covering Mondstadt, and Liyue's Archon Quest story were okay to ease me into the world of Teyvat. I did in fact enjoy the dialogues with Zhongli and the dramatic ending of the Liyue quest. Unfortunately, its many dragged out fetch quests didn't work out for me, hence I give it a lower placement. Although Inazuma is my favorite region, its Archon quest had a really slow build-up. On top of that, I had to do 2 story quests before I could even continue to the second act of the Archon quest, which dragged out the build-up even more. Even though I did enjoy Act 3 a lot, both Act 2 and 3 as a whole felt a bit rushed with the unbalanced storytelling, so Inazuma ends up at the same placement as Mondstadt and Liyue. I remember having fun playing through the Sumeru Archon quest. Act 2 was interesting to me because of the Groundhog Day experience, with its implications then having a great significance in the boss battle against Scaramouche. Although I didn't like the desert part as much, I still thought Sumeru Archon quest was much better than the previous 3 regions, with Act 5 being my favorite. Even though I placed Fontaine as my second favorite region, I loved Fontaine, both the story and its characters that were introduced. Like all the other Archon quests, it also included a long dragged-out build-up section during Act 3 and Act 4, with the whole Fortress of Meropide arc. Considering that all Archon quests had dragged out parts in their storytelling in one way or the other, Fontaine is still the best Archon quest for me, especially Act 5 being my absolute favorite so far. And then we finally have Natlan. When it comes to the Act 5 climax of the story, I honestly felt like Natlan's Archon Quest Act 4, where everyone came together to fight against the Abyss, it felt more like the grand finale than the grand finale in Act 5. I also thought the pacing felt somewhat unbalanced when I found myself needing to pause and try to remember who some of the NPC characters were that was being brought up again in Act 5. Having an interlude quest between Acts 4 and 5 contributed for me to having trouble remembering some of the details from previous acts, when those early acts happened months apart. Also, the start of Act 5 had a slow build-up which felt very dragged out, and it took over an hour before I entered a domain where the story actually began to really pick up in pacing and intensity. A frustrating moment that really broke some of my immersion was the fight with the Abyss Monster Dragon. I find this boss fight to be inconsistent with how previous boss fights in Archon quests have been done before. The boss fight with Scaramouche in Sumeru's Act 5 Archon quest was between Scaramouche, Nahida and the Traveler, and I remember we were able to use our own team during that battle, with Nahida appearing as a trial member. When Neuvillette and the Traveler fought the whale boss, I remember we weren't forced to use only Neuvillette and the Traveler for that battle. Come to think of it, when fighting against Arlecchino in her story quest, we could use our own team as well, even though the characters actually confronting Arlecchino were Lyney, Lynette, Freminet and the Traveler. So why would we need to be forced to use only the Pyro Archon and the Traveler in this boss fight, when both of their combat mechanisms were completely new to me in a boss fight in which I also wasn't familiar with the opponent? And when so much was happening at the same time, I definitely didn't have the time to take in all the dialogues that could be heard during the battle. They could have added both the Traveler and Mauve Wika as trial characters along with the team I was currently using, just like in previous boss fights, like the way they did it with Scaramouche in the Sumeru's Archon quest. Looking at the whole arc of the Natlan Archon quest, this Archon quest had too many dragged out build-ups. It felt like the build-up in Arc 5 shouldn't have been necessary considering how much of that had been done in the previous 4 acts. It could have focused more on Capitano and the final Abyss battle. All in all, yes, there were some really great cutscenes throughout the whole Natlan Archon quest, and the music has been phenomenal. But the music and those flashy cutscenes alone still could not compensate for the overall weaker story for me. So my placement of the Natlan Archon quest ends up just above the first 3 regions. There will most likely be more ups and downs moments in the storytelling, but I do hope for more ups than downs as the story continues to unfold. And that's it for this time. Bye bye.